Hello, Year 6, and here we are, Chapter 7, pages 103 to 109, which is Part 2, leaving us just as they were getting ready to go to the Festival of the Sun. And I think there's a bit of danger looming ahead, don't you? We're going to have some questions today, so I'm just going to put them up now for you to have a quick look at and talk through. So here's the questions. So we're going to start with our retrieval question on page 103, which was why was Lokar sitting and saving his strength, and giving two reasons. Then on page 105, we're going to be thinking about the word sacrifice, why Tresco's eyes glittered unpleasantly, and what we think he is thinking or planning. And at the very end, what it means when the men are pulling with might and main, and what that suggests about their task. Okay, so we'll do our first stop at page 103, which is the next page. We're looking for Lokar sitting and saving his strength, giving two reasons. Excellent. So the menfolk donned their new garments, and in a moment Callie's fears were forgotten. Berno looked striking in his red, blue and yellow paint. Brockham was wearing his plume of eagle's feathers, so was Tenko. He stood erect in the fine new tunic with its pattern of gleaming white teeth. Callie felt proud to see him wearing her handiwork. "Come, drink your milk," Dempsey called to them. Into the big bowl they each dipped a smaller bowl and drank. In all the stone houses of Skara the same thing was happening. The folk drank their bowl of milk and then made their way to the meeting place in the village. Lokar was there already, staff in hand, seated on a large stone. He was saving his strength till all the tribe assembled. Although they had less than 7 miles to walk to the ring of Brodgar, it was a very long way for an old man whose limbs were becoming feeble. Besides that, once they'd reached the ring, Lokar would have to stand for some hours. So stopping there and thinking about our retrieval questions, the two possible reasons that Lokar was sitting, were that, number one, he was old, he was about to go on a long journey, so he was saving his strength, and also as the leader of the tribe, once he got to the ring of Brodgar, he would have to stand up for some hours, so he was saving his strength there. Fabulous. Let's keep going. At last the tribe were assembled, both young and old. Berno came to the meeting place carrying 6 beautifully carved stone balls. These were the symbols of the sun belonging to the tribe of Skara. Some of them had been carved by men of the tribe long since dead, but 2 of them had been carved by Berno himself. I'm sure you're all used to the background noises in my house at the moment. Sounds like someone's having a good time in there. So, where were we? Some of them been carved by men of the tribe long since dead, but 2 of them had been carved by Berno himself. Berno looked with pride at the last stone ball he had carved. The carving on it was so deep that the pattern stood out in spikes like a hedgehog. It had taken Berno a whole year to carve, sitting by his fire at nights. The spikes represented the rays of the sun. He carried the symbols to the waiting crowd. Berno handed the oldest sign of the sun to Lokar. It was a beautiful pebble that had been chipped and polished to a perfect sphere. He handed another to Lemba the potter, the third to Salik the herdsman. Over the fourth, Berno hesitated. Tresco set him with his glittering dark eyes as though daring Berno to refuse to give him one of the symbols. Berno recognised the seething hatred in Tresco. He would do nothing to placate him. Instead, he turned and handed the stone ball to a young man, Ramna. See, he would do nothing to placate him means he's not going to play up to it. He's not going to recognise it. He's going to completely ignore it and not give in to it. "You've worked hard at the quarrying, Ramna. This is your reward." Ramna held the engraved ball high above his head in a gesture of worship to the sun. Tesco's frown deepened, but there were 2 symbols left in Berno's hand. Berno turned to Tenko. "I give this sign of the sun to Tenko to carry in the procession," he announced in a loud voice. "He has done many things for our tribe. He killed the eagle which raided our flocks, he made us a tree boat, and he brought the whale to our shores." There were shouts of approval from the tribe, but Tresco stood aloof, glowering. "He is not one of the tribe of Skara," he objected. He is one of the tribe because I have taken him for my son. Remember, Tresco, that as the head of the tribe of Skara, I have the right to say who shall carry the signs of the sun at the midsummer festival. Berno rebuked Tresco. Rebuked means went against what he said. Tresco's frown deepened, but he said no more. Are we ready now? Berno asked briskly. Take my arm, Loka, and we will lead the way. They went by the lock of scale and then along the sheep trail over the slightly rising ground. They passed a quarry with the side of a low hill. Berno pointed to it. That is the quarry of Buchan. That is where I split off the great stone from the ring of Brodgar. From here we dragged it with ropes of hide to the ring of stones. That is the stone we are going to raise today, he told Tenko with pride. So I'm just having a quick look at the questions. I know there's one coming up on page 105. So, okay, let's just have a look. The land narrowed. On either side they could see the placid waters of two great lakes, Stennis and Hooray. The long neck of land between them was holy land to the tribes of Orkney. On a mound rose the temple they were building to the sun. The gaunt slabs looked immense and awe-inspiring, outlined against the sky. As they approached the circle, the men of Skara stopped as one man, and they looked up at it with reverence. The ring of Brodgar was to be a circle of giant stones when it was finished. These stones were slabs of solid rock, about 10 feet high and over a foot thick. Their bases were buried deep in holes in the ground. Their tops had been split in a diagonal line that seemed to make them point to the sky. There are only 20 stones standing yet. When the ring of Brodgar is finished, there will be 60 stones, Berno explained to Tenko. It takes many moons to hew and shape a stone in the quarry and drag it to Brodgar. I have been working in the quarry all my life, and I have set up only 4 of the stones. Today the 5th stone is ready, and we shall hoist it into its place. It is good that we should do this at the festival of the sun. After that we shall make our sacrifice, and then we shall all eat together, the people of Orkney. Tresco was listening. At the word sacrifice, his eyes glittered unpleasantly. Let's have a moment to think there, because the question that we were going to ask you is about this part. Tresco was listening. At the word sacrifice, his eyes glittered unpleasantly. What do you think Tresco is thinking or planning? I think that they're going to either go against Tenko in some way, or that he, being like a gift to the island, might be thinking that it could be Tenko that they're going to sacrifice. I don't know, what do you think? Or do something too. I just know that Tresco has got no good plans in his mind at the moment. The ring of stones was surrounded by a deep ditch 30 feet wide, partly filled with water. It took many years for the men of Orkney to dig this ditch. They laboured hard from dawn till sunset and grew old and bent with the work, Lokar told them. It was told me by my father and his father before him, and so for many generations. Yet not a man grudged giving his health and strength in service of the sun. Not a man grudged giving his health. That means that they weren't upset by it. They were giving their health to make this together, but they didn't begrudge it. They didn't feel bad about it because they knew that they were doing something amazing. There were 2 ways to cross the moat directly facing each other, one at the northwest and one at the southeast. In these places the earth had been banked up to make a road 12 feet wide. At the northeast of the crossing, Berno halted and lined up his people. Only the men would cross into the sacred ring. The women stayed on the far side of the moat. They would watch everything from there. When Berno had formed the procession to his liking, he gave the word, "Lift up your symbols to the sun." Lift up your symbols of the sun. The 6 leaders held the carved stone balls high in their hands. Some strange compulsion made Tenko take his bronze axe from his pocket and lift that high up into the air too. It flashed brightly in the sunshine. Tresco scowled at him. Even Berno looked at him inquiringly. "Why do you do that, Tenko?" "Because this axe is the sign of the people from whom I come, who also worship the sun. You are kin to us because our speech is almost the same. I have vowed this axe to the service of my new tribe. "It is good," Lokar said approvingly. "That axe is a sign of things to come, of a new way of life. The ring of Brodgar belongs to the past and to the future too. Let Tenko carry his axe proudly." "It shall be as you say, Lokar. Men of Skara, let us go into the ring." Berno gave his command. The company advanced across the earthen bridge with the signs of the sun held aloft. Aloft meaning up high. Tenko's bronze axe flashed fire when the sun's rays caught it. Silently they joined the procession streaming from the southeast. 3 times the tribe of Orkney marched around the ring of Brodgar, and each time the men passed the highest stone of all. They lifted the signs of the sun which they carried and shouted loudly. Tenko waved his bronze axe and shouted too. The march over, the great work of erecting the new stone began. It lay on the ground, on one end of it close to a deep hole and ready to receive it. There was a sloping channel hollowed out towards the hole. The other end of the stone pointed out towards the moat. Between it and the moat was a rough platform of slabs of stone. On one end of this platform rested a long, thinner stone with its end chiselled and sharpened. This was a giant lever. Men came running from each tribe, carrying long ropes of cowhide, knotted and strong. 2 men dug with bone shovels and scraped away the earth in a hollow just below the outward end of the stone. When the hollow was deep enough, the men with the cowhide ropes slipped their nooses around the pointed edge of the great stone. When the hollow was deep, there were 6 long ropes, 3 to pull the stone upwards, and 3 stretching in the opposite direction to steady the stone from toppling over once it had slipped into the hole and was standing erect. Teams of men from all the tribes manned the ropes. 6 of the strongest men mounted the stone platform. Berno climbed up with them. It was his duty to oversee the work and to shout commands. The 6 men seized the lever stone and thrust the pointed end into the hollow below the stone that was to be hoisted into the ring. All eyes were on Berno. "Heave!" cried the men at the stone lever. They pressed their weight down on their end of the lever. "Pull!" shouted the men on the far ropes. At once they began to haul. The men of Berno's side of stone held their ropes slackly. They would be ready to take the strain of the stone's weight when Berno gave the word. The great stone was levered upward a few inches. The men on the ropes opposite pulled with might and main. Slowly, the end of the giant stone began to rise. I'll stop there because we've got our next part of the question, the vocabulary question. The men on the ropes opposite pulled with might and main. What does pulled with might and main suggest? I'm hoping you will understand that they are hauling a huge stone up into the hole, and so might and main would mean with everything they've got. Okay, with every main bit of strength, every bit of might. When it was about 2 feet in the air, Berno called out, "Hold! Hold fast, everyone! Do not let go, but do not pull." It was necessary to lower the stone platform so that the men could get the lever at a sharper angle. A big stone wedge was placed to hold the lever in position. Stones were lifted from the platform. This was a tricky business, for the men holding the lever had to step down to a lower level and yet keep the lever from sliding. They were all experienced in handling the lever, and there was no mishap. The lowered platform gave them greater leverage. "Heave, pull," Berno cried, watching both teams levering and hauling. Under Berno's commands, they worked in rhythm together so that the thrust and haul happened at the same moment. It was perfect timing. With each effort, the outward end of the great stone rose higher. All at once, the stone seemed to move backwards of its own accord. The end of it on the ground was sliding into the funnel-like opening of the hole. As they slipped it in, it became upright. This was the most difficult part of the operation. Berno had been waiting for this moment. "Pull on your ropes, take the strain," he called sharply to the team on the slack ropes. When the great stone began to settle into its hole, there was always the danger that if the pull on it by the first rope team was too strong, it might topple over backwards. The moment the end of the stone fell into the hole, there must be an equal pull on the ropes in both directions to keep it upright. The men tightened their grip on all the ropes. Now, Berno cried, as the end of the stone dropped into the bottom of the hole with a thud and the stone rose upwards. It wobbled dangerously for a moment, but the ropes tightened on both sides and held it steady. It settled into the hole and remained erect. A shout of joy broke out from all the men. "Keep hold of the ropes! Keep a gentle pull on them! Do not let go yet!" Berno cried as the cheering died down. The men obeyed, keeping an equal strain on both sides of the stone. With bone shovels, other men lifted earth and gravel and packed it tightly around the base of the stone in the hole. They tramped it down till the whole socket was solid and firm. Berno went up to the stone and tried to push it in either direction. It did not move an inch. It was as though it had grown out of the ground like a tree. "It is good," Berno pronounced. The great stone stands of itself. Let go of the ropes that you hold." Cheering broke out afresh among the men of Orkney. Callie watched her father with pride, but her glance kept turning to Tenko. He had taken his place on the ropes and hauled with the rest. He had obeyed Berno's commands with joy. At this moment of achievement, he felt that he indeed belonged to the tribe of Skara. "It is well done, my sons. The circle of Brodgar grows each year." Lokar spoke with satisfaction. "Today is a great festival of the sun. Our temple will one day be complete, like those temples in far-off lands which our forefathers have told us. All our tribe and children of the sun, wherever those temples are built. By the ring of standing stones shall we be known. Let us now lift our arms in the chant to the sun, and then we will eat." There came an unexpected interruption from Tresco. "Should we not make the sacrifice first, Lokar? The blood sacrifice. The sacrifice will make the god of the sun pleased with us." Lokar was annoyed that Tresco should interrupt. "Tresco, I will order matters in my own way." And I'm going to stop there because that's the end of page 109. And the last part of this chapter is going to be where we find out whether our inference and predictions were right about Tresco and his intentions for Tenko and what's going to happen. So I will see you for the next part. See you later.